Well, we welcome you inside the Westlake Nation studios, and like everybody else, we're trying to figure out how to keep our social distance. And it seems like we're able to video conference. And I wanted to actually bring some good news to all of you because we've been dealing with no sports, no athletics, no school. It's been the longest spring break ever. And joining me this morning on the Westlake Nation studio hotline here in our Shapcast is the superintendent of Eanes ISD, Tom Leonard. Dr. Tom Leonard joining us as well. You notice him, top left corner on your screen there. And at the bottom is Jeremy Trimble, the Chief Operations Officer for Eanes ISD. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us this morning. And some big news coming out of the district earlier this week. And it's a big time jump for not just the athletic department, but also the school as a whole. Let everybody know what, and I'll start with Dr. Leonard. Let everybody know what happened while we were at home, social distancing and trying to keep everybody safe and healthy.
Well, yeah, I think there's been a lot of stress, I think, and a lot of, we're really some uncertain times, but it's our belief we're going to come through this at some point. And when we come through it, we're going to have some great facilities. You know, there have been some things that are more recent in our development. There's some things that have been long-term goals of this community. This community's been talking about having a quality swimming indoor facility for a long time. And we're on the verge of making that a reality. Obviously 30, 40 years ago, we were not talking as much about robotics, but now that is something that I think will be around with us for a long period of time in the future. So having that facility coming online in about a year or so will be great. And wrestling, we've always had a struggle providing them a dedicated space that would serve some needs. And actually, we have a little, with Jeremy and the teams he's been working with, they've come up with a great plan where that'll be something that'll work for the community, not only for wrestling. But back when we did the bond, we had a lot of community members wanted us to focus on those three facility improvements. The bond did pass, which was wonderful. And when the bond passed, I think it passed with like 80-something% or close to 80% approval rating. It said that we could try to explore getting these facilities done. And maybe I will have Jeremy do a little bit on each, if that's okay, and I'll kind of go in between as we do the transition. So
yeah, that would be great. And what you're looking at now as we share our screen, because we have the ability to do so, this is the presentation that was delivered at the virtual board meeting, and I think it's really unique that a project of this size, everybody was able to come together as an open forum and really discuss and how this is going to look. And I think that's the big thing. We can talk about the bond and obviously the big, campaign behind it, and with the approval, we wanted to start seeing some things. And really, when you see these renderings, Jeremy, it really gives life to what we will see on the campus in the coming year to 2 years as these buildings and new facilities come online.
Yes, sir. And behind each one of these facilities are some focus groups that were developed last summer. And those have district administration, community members, Envision Eanes members, athletic department, just a big group of individuals that really brought their needs and aspirations for each one of these buildings into the picture. And so what you see in front of you on the screen are just the latest renderings. We're kind of at that stage, that final stage, where we know what the building is going to look like and how it's going to function. And we wanted to share some of those graphics with everyone out there that may not have seen the updates. So again, these buildings check every box for all of our stakeholders and our end users in order to provide the best space and for them to learn robotics, to operate robotics. But what this building does also is it frees up classrooms in the high school. And we're the largest enrollment of Westlake High School in its history this year, and we need space, and we'll continue to need that space. And this will provide additional opportunities within the high school, being able to bring some classes out here. So Jeremy, it's going to serve its purpose.
Jeremy, can you tell them a little bit about the URL code there? And, and that'll be on our web as well. So what's that about?
So anyone, even right now live, if you have your phone and you have a QR reader on your phone, take a picture, use that reader over that QR code on the screen. We put this on each facility. This will allow you to kind of navigate the spaces in a three-dimensional world This one is actually a virtual kind of reality where you hold your phone up and move around, move your head around, and it'll take you through these spaces. You can look at inside and outside. So that's a great thing that you can do it while you're watching. You can do it after the fact. It's posted on the website. And that's for all 3 facilities. And this will continue to be an opportunity we provide to everyone out there, our community, just to take a look at the facilities as they come to life and come to fruition even during the process. So
Joe,
this is the robotics facility. Checks your boxes.
Well, before you go off robotics, this program has exploded at Westlake High School and is now down into the middle schools. Norman Morgan, you might know Norman, he used to coach, and now he focuses his energies much more in the robotics domain. But the numbers, and our numbers, what we're really proud of is we have, in some schools, you'll see that this is almost all male students, not at Westlake. We've got a significant number of students, young women who are in this program. In fact, a couple of years ago, one of our young women who was in the program is now at Stanford. She has a couple patents. These are some of the jobs of the future, and we want to have a facility that will help our kids be prepared for those jobs.
And I think it's unique because it's not just a robotics facility in a place where they can not just build, but a place that they can compete. As I look at these images, this is, I hate to say that we're starting to become very familiar with how a robotics competition looks, but that's what, the sports channels and some of the other cable network channels have given us, these competitions. We actually know what they look like. Maybe not totally mainstream just yet, but it seems like this is going to be an opportunity to really host events and be a more traditional space, not just for Eanes ISD students, but for the competition that would be able to come onto the campus and really reap the benefits of the facility as well.
Yeah, but the bad news, Joe, is you're going to have to hone your interview skills when you're interviewing a robot. I'm not sure they're going to understand your sense of humor.
No, not at all. But we can program, and hopefully, the days of interviewing a robotic athlete will be down the line. But really, it's the human interest behind it, and that's the big deal for this particular conversation. And the good news for the robotics team is that it is going to be something that I think people will understand is crucial to the development of every Eanes ISD student. People that are interested in this, students that are interested in this at such a young age. That's what's really mind-blowing to me, is that it's in the middle school programs, and there's a way, just like Coach Dodge or anybody else would love to hone the middle school skills to get them prepared for the high school team. I think it just makes everybody better.
Exactly.
Looking at the next facility, I know the wrestling department. Obviously, you talked about the explosion, Dr. Leonard, of the student athletes in wrestling, not only in numbers, but in young women that are a part of this program now. And, I look at everybody that's been coming along in the last couple of years, Westlake student athletes actually qualifying for the NCAAs in wrestling. So wrestling has not only seen a boost of athletes, but the bond has let everybody know that there's a commitment to wrestling and to do so in a safe space. And I know that's a big, big component. And once again, seeing the numbers go up with wrestling has been pretty impressive.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a group that, again, this has been something that has been talked about for quite a while. This bond's going to accomplish some things that have been aspirations of the community for a good deal of time. And thanks to, again, Jeremy and his team, and originally this was going to be a cookie cutter box across the street from Westlake High School. But I give credit to the group that Jeremy's worked with. I think they've got a great idea here. And Jeremy, be sure you share that not only will this help wrestling, there's a couple other tangential things that you've weaved into this that I think will be of interest to the community.
Yep. As you can see, this facility sits right at the corner of the field house, right outside the coach's office area there, outside the varsity football locker room. And the architect proposed this in the beginning of the stages of the process. It's a space that we never thought we would be building on. But we're able to leverage some of the things we already have in place, utilities, things like that, locker rooms. And so utilizing this corner will actually improve our traffic flow in and around that corner, and also increase our parking as we kind of redistribute some. So increasing parking is always a great thing at Westlake High School and Eanes ISD in general. And so that's a great plus to this facility. But also, this creates a large space, about 6,500 square feet of just an open space. So where during wrestling season, mats are down on the floor, mats are on the wall. This is exactly what you see, about 12-foot ceilings. If you look directly through that glass in the distance, you will see Shap Stadium clearly.
Yeah, that was one of the first things I noticed when going over this. Is I looked in the background and I said, wait a minute, is that the stadium? And just having this this new age look to something that would be able to overlook the stadium, that has some punch as well when you're thinking about what this is going to look like.
Yes, and also multi-purpose space. Any space that we create, especially at Westlake High School, we want it to serve multiple uses. And this is a great opportunity where during the day, during wrestling season, the mats are down, but those mats can come up out of season, and it can become a new space, as you'll see on the next slide, with just some general tables and chairs, and you transform that space to meeting space, gathering space, and banquet space. And so it'll have all the audio visual equipment that's needed for any type of event like that. So again, multi-purpose space, and we were actually able to increase the amount of lockers, just expanding the varsity football locker room. So there's some overflow space for the football team now that traditionally has been in the JV, while still maintaining growth areas for the wrestling and the boys. And then we were able to carve out a small area in the girls' locker room for the girl wrestlers just down the hall. So it's a great location and leveraging a lot of the resources we already have in place.
And Jeremy, this is about, what, 6,400 square feet?
About 6,500. That opened the clear floor space was about 6,500 square feet.
So it's a great space for other things besides wrestling at some particular period of time.
Yep.
And I think ultimately the creme de la creme of this, because as I know, in visiting with the swimming coaches and receiving video, I don't know if you've paid attention to our Westlake Nation pages, but there have been times where we've had video posted on our platform of the swimmers getting a workout in the rain outside at Lost Creek Country Club. They've swum in really difficult conditions. That's how they train. But the aquatic center, I know, is the jewel of this bond. And really, when you think about this project, a swimming and diving program that has been so successful, and now, I can see it every time I run into both coaches. And I think, Steve Navarro is one of those guys that I just see a little wink in his eye, if you will, a twinkle in his eye, because he knows that he's about to have one of the premier spaces in the state to really train his athletes. And I think this is a huge part of what this upgrade will be able to do, not just for Westlake student athletes, but for Westlake students, future Shaps as well, as we look at it from a community standpoint.
Right. And just a couple words on that. Again, this has been something I think the community has desired for at least 30 years. We've been competitive. We've got great swimmers who's come out of our high school that have swum at the collegiate level. It's something we need, not only for our athletes, but just a good swimming space for kids to have lessons during the summer. Learning how to swim is a vital skill to have. And, our swimmers, competitive swimmers, cannot be in there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we've always envisioned that this could be a place where older adults might be able to get in at certain times and swim. Master swimming clubs, adults would be able to get in there and swim. So also helps us for water polo, which is another sport that we have at the high school. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be a beautiful facility. This coronavirus is going to be with us for a while. This pool is going to be with us probably for the next 50, 60 years, at least. And who knows, then there'll have to probably be some modifications done to it at that time. But, the virus is going to come and go. This is going to be a facility that I think everyone will be able to celebrate for a long, long period of time.
I completely agree with that statement, because listening to some of the alumni, especially with the 50th anniversary, you start thinking about what that means, not just for alumni that maybe move away, then settle back in Austin. They want their kids to go through. We've had a number of student athletes that are legacies this year coming back through the program that their parents went through. And just to know that in the future, you're going to be telling stories about, I hear people that grew up in the area. I grew up swimming at Lost Creek, or I grew up swimming here. They're going to say, hey, I grew up swimming at this aquatics center. And I think that has a lot of what you're talking about, Dr. Leonard, is the ability to kind of look back and say, this is where I grew up, and being proud of this facility. And I think, Jeremy, looking at what some of the renderings offer, it looks like an amazing space as well.
Yes, and again, that's what when we started, within the focus group, the coaches are on there. We had community members, and we wanted to make sure that we gave priority to all of those, whether our swim team, but our community and other students. At the middle school level, this will expand some of those programs. So that was a priority. And you speak about Coach Navarro and some of the conditions they have to swim at. We had a large hurdle we had to get over for this facility within the city of Westlake Hills, and some height restrictions, and we needed to remove from some vegetation and needed variances. Well, they show up. This is in the middle of winter, and when they're swimming and they're showing up right after practice, and I think that a lot of the attendees at those meetings were shocked that they just came from swimming practice and it's 37 degrees outside.
Yeah. And
this will allow them to get out of those conditions.
Yeah. If I could say something to that,
Go ahead, Dr. Leonard.
Credit to Westlake Hills, the village. I think they also saw that this was just not going to be a facility just for Eanes ISD, that this was going to be a facility that community members would be able to get into, older community members would be able to get into. And they worked with us and worked with Jeremy's team on some variances with this. And Jeremy, you had some pretty notable people on your committee. Some people had some pretty good swim experience too, I believe. Am I correct?
Yes, you are correct. One of our community representatives on that committee was Brendan Hansen. A lot of us are very familiar with Brendan and his success, both at the University of Texas, but in the Olympics as well. So he brought a wealth of knowledge, just competitive swimming, running swim centers, and just being in the water. And so that was an invaluable experience that he brought to the group. We all learned a lot from him.
Right. Only in Westlake would we have when we need some community expertise that we can get an Olympic medalist in swimming, just raise their hand and volunteer to help us.
Well, I think that's also a big component of really one of the only business topics, because I want to cover about how this is very similar to the WAC relationship with the Westlake Athletic Community Center, and how that's benefited not only just the programs at Westlake, but also the middle schools, the elementary schools, and all of the community. It's a similar business model with this aquatic center and all of these additions, especially the aquatic center, the ability to be able to maintain a cost neutral opportunity for Eanes ISD. And Dr. Leonard, I think that's a huge component of this particular agreement as construction ramps up.
Right, it is. When I first came in 2014, we didn't have a WAC. That didn't exist. We spent 6-7 months negotiating that contract and negotiating that plan, getting that facility built at no cost to the taxpayers. And we basically have a great facility for extra gym space and indoor turf field. And the WAC has done a great job managing that. They make it profitable for them. We have no costs, utility costs or M&O costs that the district then has to take away from the classroom. So we decided, as we're going into this project, to try to model off of that as well, because in a lot of communities, when you put a swimming pool in, it can cost you $300,000-$400,000 a year to run it. And that's $300,000-$400,000 a year that you cannot use for teachers or in classroom instruction. And our board was real clear when they sold this to the community, and the community decided to go with it, that we weren't going to make that the case. We were going to make sure that Well, we're going to do everything we could do to minimize the strain that this might have on our M&O budget. And right now, we believe there will be no impact on our M&O budget. And in fact, we'll actually save some money because we won't be now renting pool space elsewhere. So that drain in our expenditures will be gone, and we will not be robbing Peter to pay Paul to run this facility. So that's a big deal. Very few school districts have accomplished that I'm aware of. In fact, I don't know of any. But back to the facility, Jeremy and his team, it's going to be pretty cool. And if you look at the renderings, Jeremy, you can, I just think it's 8-lane pool, Jeremy, and it's going to be,
it's 8 lanes, 25 meter stretch pool. What that means is that you could be competitively swimming in the lanes while actually diving on the other end. So it's a long pool, but there's a bulkhead that lies in the pool. And so you can be swimming and you can be diving at the same time. So we can maximize the amount of water space. We actually can swim across the pool as well for practice. So we can get up to 14 lanes of practicing. Allows all the swimmers to get in the pool and be efficient with our time. And again, all these decisions are made not only for our swimmers, but also for those clubs and groups that may want to use the facility outside of our school hours.
Mm-hmm.
Well, gentlemen, I really appreciate the time this morning. I think this is a bit of good news in a time that, Dr. Leonard, as you mentioned earlier, that has been very stressful. But just to know that in the coming months, and I think the plan that was presented at March 31st's meeting is that construction will start in June. And I assume with the latest information that the district has and that the construction team is providing you, that this is a very real possibility that despite whatever the challenges in the next month or so while we deal with the coronavirus and the effects of COVID-19, we are able to at least see the beginning stages of this project coming online.
Right. That's the goal. Timelines shift a little bit, they shift, but the main thing is we're going to get this thing done.
Jeremy, thanks so much for joining us. Jeremy Trimble, the Chief Operations Officer for Eanes ISD, Dr. Tom Leonard, the Superintendent of Eanes ISD. Some good news in the athletic and robotic and wrestling worlds, along with the Aquatic Center. Thanks so much for taking the time here at Westlake Nation Studios, and we hope this is the first of many conversations to come about this project.
Thanks, Joe.
Again, my thanks to Dr. Tom Leonard and Jeremy Trimble. I'm Joe Taylor inside the Westlake Nation Studios. Thanks so much for watching. Please make sure you stay healthy, stay safe, and stay home. This is Westlake Nation.